In Psalm 3 verse 7 it is written, "Strike all my enemies on the jaw, break the teeth of the wicked." When somebody harms us, when somebody does any evil to us, if we are under injustice, if any evil is done upon us, then the first thing that we would like to do is to take revenge. Revenge can be a very strong feeling in a person's heart. If any injustice is done to any person, then for years he may have that feeling of revenge in his heart. He would like to counterattack and avenge himself, avenge for the injustice that was done to him. For whenever there is an injustice, then there is the questions of vengeance also. We must have seen many movies and stories where the main theme of the story is revenge. Someone has damaged somebody and he takes the revenge, and that becomes the story. And people like such story where the villain is beaten at the end, where the revenge is taken at the end. The feeling of revenge, the feeling that you have been wronged, that injustice has been done on you, can result in the formation of grudge in our heart, and that requires revenge. The topic of revenge has to be dealt in a simpler way. Whenever a person is affected by any sort of attack and what he thinks as injustice, then he naturally likes to take a revenge. But if there is a quarrel, a dispute between two persons, and they are against each other, they want to take revenge against each other, then the first thing that we need is not revenge outright. We need a judge who will decide on the matter, who is actually right and who is actually wrong, and what kind of punishment has to be given to that person. That only a judge can decide. Because when we think of revenge, of avenging ourselves, then the first thing that comes in our mind is beating that person, killing the enemy. Revenge for us means to kill somebody, to harm him, to harm that particular person. That is what we understand regarding the revenge. But revenge can be of various kind. Justice can be found not only in killing people, but in other ways and means. During the old time, revenge was attested in the law. Moses gave law to his people that was God ordained, and in that law the element of revenge was there. For that we can read Leviticus 24 verse 17, where it is written, "If anyone takes the life of a human being, he must be put to death. Anyone who takes life of someone's animal must make restitution, life for life. If anyone injures his neighbor, whatever he has done must be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. As he has injured the other, so he is to be injured." This law is also known as the law of retaliation, in Latin lex talionis. This law during the ancient time satisfied the need of justice that was required on those primitive societies. You have been harmed by a person, the person will be accordingly punished. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. It was very simple, but at the same time very brutal also. But then came a reformer whose name was Jesus, and Jesus preached a different sermon. He also gave his comments regarding this law, eye for eye, tooth for tooth law, this law of retaliation, lex talionis. He gave a different idea. His teaching was different. He wanted to bring a reformation, a change in this old law, because it is no good to kill people by stoning him or her in the open. He wanted to change that. He wanted to remove all the brutal aspects of Old Testament, and he accordingly advocated change. This we can find in his teaching in Matthew chapter 5 verse 38, where Jesus is telling, "You have heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn on him the other also." Jesus is calling for a change in this law of retaliation, that you need not to be as brutal as your enemy are. If you have a dispute between yourself, you need a judge who will decide who is wrong, and the punishment will accordingly be inflicted on the one who has done wrong. And we as a believer, we also are dependent on God to be our judge. If I have a dispute with you, I myself cannot be judge on the same dispute. The judge has to be the third person. And if I try to be judge and try to punish people then that will be inherently wrong. That would be biased. If the enemy is weak, if the enemy is weaker than you, smaller than you, then you may easily take your revenge. But in case, if the enemy is larger than you, more powerful than you, in that case you are helpless. You can't do anything. So your revenge is limited and restricted. In some case, you can take revenge, but in other cases, you cannot take revenge. And in all cases, it is always better to be dependent on God for His help, for His judgment. King David had already killed many of his enemies, but there came a time in his life when his enemies were bigger than him, and was grappling with the situation. And at that moment of time, he called to God and asked for help. And that's what is written in Psalm 3 verse 7, where King David is praying to God for his help to punish his enemies for the wrong that they have done to him. And that should also be our prayer all the time for all the wrong that has been done to us. It is no good to live a life which is full of grudge. It is no beautiful to have the feeling of revenge in ourselves. But we need justice, and God is there to provide justice. Who knows exactly how to punish a particular person? And that is the essence of Psalm 3 verse 7 regarding the prayer of David, which requests God, which prays to God, strike all my enemies on the jaw and break the teeth of the wicked.